Captain Lee Minho adjusted his uniform as the diplomatic vessel New Soul approached the massive alien structure floating in space. The Zephyrian capital ship looked like a giant crystal palace, all sharp edges and gleaming surfaces that hurt to look at directly. This was it, humanity's first real meeting with the aliens who controlled this part of the galaxy. "Nervous, sir?" asked Park Ji-soo from the communications station. She was young, maybe 25, and this was her first deep space mission. "A little," Minho admitted. He had been chosen to lead this mission because he spoke well and stayed calm under pressure. Earth's leaders needed this to go right. The Zephyrians had technology humans could only dream of. Faster ships, better weapons, cities that floated in space like jewels. The docking bay doors opened with a sound like singing crystal. Minho led his small team through corridors that seemed to be made of living light. Everything was too tall, too bright, too perfect. It made him feel small and dirty in comparison. The council chamber was enormous. 12 Zephyrian leaders sat on thrones that looked like they were carved from diamonds. Each alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies made of what looked like colored crystal. They moved with slow, deliberate grace, like they had all the time in the world. Admiral Krixtal sat in the center throne. His crystal body was deep, blue, almost black, and when he moved, light scattered through him like he was made of expensive gemstones. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. "So," Krixtal said, and Minho could hear amusement in the alien's tone. "These are the famous humans we have heard whispers about." "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Minho said, bowing slightly. "We come seeking friendship and peaceful relations between our peoples." The Zephyrians made sounds like wind chimes, their version of laughter. Krixtal leaned forward on his throne, studying the humans like they were interesting insects. "Friendship?" Krixtal repeated. "How charming. Tell me, little human, what exactly do you think you can offer us?" "We have resources, knowledge, art, culture," Minho began. "Resources?" Another Zephyrian spoke up, her voice like breaking glass. "Your entire planet has fewer rare metals than we mine from a single asteroid in a day." "Knowledge?" added a third. "Your fastest ships take months to travel distances we cover in hours. Your weapons throw metal pellets using chemical explosions. Your computers are barely more advanced than counting stones." Minho felt his jaw tighten, but kept his voice steady. "We may not have your level of technology, but we have other strengths. Our people are creative, adaptable." "Adaptable," Krixtal interrupted, standing from his throne. He was even more impressive upright, towering over the humans like a living statue. "Yes, I suppose rats are adaptable too. They can live almost anywhere, eat almost anything, breed very quickly." The other Zephyrians chimed their laughter again. Park Ji-soo stepped closer to Minho, her face pale but determined. Chief Engineer Choi Hana, the third member of their team, was recording everything with a small device. "Your species has been crawling around space for what, 50 of your years?" Krixtal continued. "We have been building star-spanning civilizations for over 2,000 years. We have conquered species with technology far beyond yours. We have turned entire worlds into gardens, moved stars to more convenient locations, created artificial dimensions for our pleasure." He walked down from his throne platform, each step making a sound like a bell. "And yet you come here to us, talking about friendship between equals. Do you consider yourself equal to us, little captain?" "I consider all intelligent life to have value," Minho replied carefully. "How wonderfully primitive," Krixtal said. He was now standing directly in front of Minho, so close that the human could see his own reflection dozens of times in the alien's crystalline surface. "Let me explain reality to you, Captain Lee Minho of the humans." The alien's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but it still filled the chamber. "Your species will accept Zephyrian protection. Your colonies will become nature preserves where you can live safely under our guidance. Your children will learn proper civilization from their betters. In exchange, we will not allow you to embarrass yourselves further among the other races." "And if we refuse?" Minho asked. Krikstal's laugh was like an avalanche of crystal. Refuse? Captain, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. This is us informing you of what will happen. Your little ships, your chemical weapons, your brief lifespans. What exactly do you think you could do to resist us? He gestured to the viewing wall, which showed images of Zephyrian warships. Each one was the size of a human city, bristling, with weapons that could crack planets. We are being generous by allowing your species to continue existing. Many in our empire suggested we simply claim your worlds as territory and relocate you to more suitable habitats. Like zoos, added another council member helpfully. Minho felt something cold and hard settling in his stomach. This was not going as anyone on Earth had hoped. The Zephyrians were not interested in cooperation or friendship. They saw humans as pets at best, pests at worst. I will need to discuss these terms with my government, he said. Of course, Krikstal replied. Take all the time you need. You have 7 of your days to provide your answer. Guards will escort you back to your vessel. As they were led away, Minho caught Park Jisu's eye. She had been recording everything. Earth would see exactly what they were dealing with. The Zephyrians had made one mistake, though. They assumed that because humans were weaker and less advanced, they were helpless. They had never encountered a species that got more dangerous when cornered. That was about to change. Admiral Lee Minho sat in the command center of the space station Busan Prime, watching the emergency signals flood in from across human space. 3 weeks had passed since his humiliating meeting with the Zephyrians, and now their threats were becoming reality. Admiral, we're getting distress calls from Research Station Daegu, reported Commander Kim Tae-hyung, his face pale as he read the incoming data. Zephyrian ships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're not responding to communications. Minho had been promoted after his report to Earth Command. The politicians finally understood what they were dealing with, but understanding and being able to fight back were two very different things. The Zephyrians had ships that could destroy human vessels before they even knew they were under attack. Put it on the main screen, Minho ordered. The display showed Research Station Daegu, a peaceful scientific outpost that studied alien plant life. It housed 200 researchers and their families, including 30 children who lived there while their parents worked. The station was beautiful in its own way, with gardens visible through the transparent sections and solar collectors that looked like metal flowers. Then the Zephyrian ships appeared. They looked like flying cathedrals made of crystal and light, each one easily 10 times the size of the research station. Energy beams lanced out not to destroy but to disable. The station's engines went dark. Its communications array sparked and died. Its defensive shields, weak as they were, collapsed in seconds. They're boarding, whispered Lieutenant Park Sunwoo from the tactical station. Small craft launching, from the alien ships. Minho watched in growing horror as the boarding pods, shaped like crystal spears, punched through the station's hull. He could see the research staff trying to evacuate through the emergency exits, families carrying children, scientists abandoning years of work to run for their lives. But there was nowhere to run. Sir, Kim Tae-hyung's voice was tight with controlled anger. We're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. Put it through. Admiral Krikstal's face appeared on the screen, his crystal features reflecting the lights of the captured station behind him. But it was what Minho saw in the background that made his blood turn to ice. Cages. Energy cages filled with human prisoners. Men and women in research uniforms pressed against the glowing barriers. Elderly scientists who had dedicated their lives to peaceful study. Young couples who had come to the station to start new lives together. And worst of all, the children. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, stood at the front of one cage. Her face was streaked with tears as she called out for her parents. Behind her, other children huddled together, scared and confused. They did not understand why these strange crystal beings had taken them from their homes. Greetings, Admiral. Lee, Krikstal said, his voice carrying that same amused tone from their first meeting. I trust you can see our guests. They are quite comfortable, I assure you. Let them go. Minho's voice was steady, but his hands were clenched into fists. They're civilians, scientists, Children. They are specimens, Crixtel corrected. We are conducting important research into human behavior and biology. Very educational. Did you know that young humans cry almost constantly when separated from their parents? Fascinating creatures. Behind the alien commander, one of the children pressed her small hand against the energy barrier of her cage. She was wearing a shirt with a cartoon character on it, something bright and cheerful that now seemed horrible in this place. This is your final warning to your species, Crixtel continued. Surrender all human colonies within one rotation of your planet, or we will be forced to expand our research. These subjects will be relocated to proper facilities where they can live out their natural lifespans under scientific observation. You're talking about slavery, Minho said. We prefer the term protective custody, Crixtal replied. Humans are clearly too primitive to care for themselves properly. Left alone, you would eventually destroy yourselves with your crude weapons and violent nature. We are providing a service. One of the caged scientists, an older man with gray hair, was shouting something that the audio could not pick up. Crixtal glanced at him with mild irritation. The specimens are quite vocal, the alien said. We may need to adjust their vocal cords to reduce the noise levels, for their own comfort, of course. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in deadly silence. Minho stared at the blank screen, seeing the afterimage of those cages burned into his vision. Around him, his officers sat frozen, their faces reflecting the same mixture of horror and rage that was building in his chest. Sir? Kim Tae-hyung's voice was very quiet. Orders? Minho stood slowly, his mind racing. The Zephyrians thought they understood humans. They had studied human technology, human society, human military capabilities. They had measured human ships and weapons and found them lacking. They thought they knew exactly what humanity was capable of. They were wrong. Contact Earth Command, Minho said, his voice carrying a tone his officers had never heard before. Tell them the Zephyrians just made the worst mistake in their species' history. Sir? They hurt our children. Minho turned to face his staff, and they saw something new in his eyes. Something cold and determined and absolutely terrifying. Send word to every human colony, every ship captain, every engineer and scientist and soldier. Tell them what we just saw. He paused, looking out at the stars where humanity's enemies waited. It's time to show these crystal monsters what humans do to anyone who threatens our families. Admiral Lee Minho stood before a massive holographic display showing the entire outer rim of human space. Red dots marked Zephyrian positions, blue dots showed human assets, and yellow dots indicated civilian populations that needed protection. The war room aboard the battle station Incheon buzzed with quiet activity as his best officers worked around the clock. It had been 2 months since the Zephyrians captured research station Daegu. 2 months of what the aliens called specimen collection and humans called kidnapping. But things were about to change. Status report, Minho said as Commander Kim Tae-hyung approached with a data pad. Operation Ghost Dance is exceeding all expectations, sir, Kim replied, unable to hide his excitement. Major Song Ji-hoon's mining team just took out their 3rd supply depot. The Zephyrians still think they're dealing with random pirate attacks. On the main screen, grainy footage showed what looked like a simple asteroid mining operation. The ship Lucky Strike was a beat-up old vessel that had been hauling space rocks for 20 years. Its hull was scarred, its engines were loud, and it looked like it would fall apart if someone sneezed on it. But when the Zephyrian patrol ships moved in to investigate, the mining ship's cargo bay opened to reveal missile launchers hidden inside fake ore containers. The sleek alien vessels, designed to fight other advanced warships, had no defense against weapons that looked like civilian mining equipment. How many ships have we converted so far? Minho asked. 412, answered Chief Engineer Choi Hana, walking up with grease stains on her uniform. We've got luxury cruise ships with railguns hidden in their swimming pools, cargo haulers carrying torpedo tubes instead of containers, and passenger liners with their dining rooms converted into fighter bays. She pulled up another display showing the cruise ship Jeju Dream. It still looked like a vacation vessel, complete with viewing decks and entertainment areas. But hidden beneath its elegant exterior were enough weapons to sink a Zephyrian destroyer. The beauty of it, Choi continued, is that they keep scanning for military vessels and ignoring everything else. To them, a garbage scow is just a garbage scow. They never think to look inside. Lieutenant Colonel Park Sun-woo entered the room, his Special Forces uniform bearing fresh scorch marks. Behind him walked a group of people in civilian clothes, the rescued prisoners from Research Station Daegu. "Mission accomplished, Admiral," Park reported. "All hostages recovered. 0 casualties on our side." Minho felt relief wash over him as he saw the familiar faces. The elderly scientist with gray hair was there, looking tired but unharmed. The young families stood close together, parents holding their children tight. And there was the little girl who had pressed her hand against the energy cage. She was clutching a small toy and smiling despite everything she had been through. "How did you manage it?" asked General Nam Seokjin, who had arrived from Earth Command that morning. "Intelligence," said their detention facility was impossible to break into. Park grinned. "That's what they kept telling us too. Impenetrable crystal barriers, quantum locks, defensive systems that could detect a fly landing on the hull. Very impressive technology." He activated a small recording device, showing footage from inside the Zephyrian prison ship. The crystal walls and energy barriers looked exactly as intimidating as the aliens claimed. "The problem with being that advanced," Park continued, "is that you start thinking in advanced ways. Their security was designed to stop other high-tech species with fancy equipment and sophisticated plans." The recording showed Park's team moving through the ship, but they were not carrying advanced weapons or using high-tech gadgets. Instead, they had simple tools: wire cutters, portable welders, emergency medical supplies, and what looked like children's toys. "We didn't try to hack their quantum locks," Park explained. "We cut through the wall next to them. We didn't attempt to disable their energy barriers. We overloaded them by feeding them power from their own torture devices." On screen, the rescue team was shown rewiring Zephyrian equipment, turning the aliens' own technology against them. Medical scanners became signal jammers. Food dispensers became explosive devices. Even the children's toys had been modified. The little girl's stuffed animal had contained a small transmitter that helped the team find the prisoners. "The Zephyrians couldn't understand what was happening," Park continued. "Their sensors showed humans entering their ship, but we were using their own equipment against them. By the time they figured out what we were doing, their prisoners were already on their way home." One of the rescued scientists, Dr. Oh Min-jae, stepped forward. "Admiral, there's something else you should know. While we were captives, we learned about their military structure. They have procedures for everything, rules for every situation. Very organized, very predictable." "And?" Minho prompted. "They have no procedures for dealing with chaos," Dr. Oh replied. "When something unexpected happens, they have to stop and ask their superiors what to do. It takes them time to adapt." Choi Hana nodded enthusiastically. "That's exactly what we're seeing in the field reports. Every time we hit them with something new, they freeze up for several minutes while they figure out how to respond. Meanwhile," Kim Tae-hyung added, "we're already moving on to the next target. By the time they've adapted to our last trick, we're using 3 new ones." Minho looked around the room at his officers, the rescued civilians, and the tactical displays, showing human ships disguised as everything from pleasure craft to garbage haulers. The Zephyrians had better technology, bigger ships, and more firepower, but they had made one critical mistake. They thought warfare was about having the best equipment. Humans had learned long ago that warfare was about using whatever you had in ways your enemy never expected. "Status on the main fleet?" Minho asked. "Admiral Krikstal is requesting reinforcements," Kim reported. "Apparently he's having trouble with what he calls irregular combat patterns." Minho smiled. "Good. Let's show him just how irregular humans can be." Admiral Krikstal stood in the command center of his flagship Crystal Dominion, his crystalline form flickering with colors that showed his growing frustration. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to make sense of the tactical displays that showed nothing but bad news. "Report," Krikstal demanded. his voice echoing through the chamber like breaking glass. "Sir, we have lost another supply convoy," his tactical officer announced, her crystal body dim with worry. The humans used what appeared to be a school transport vessel. Our scanners detected children's voices and educational broadcasts, so we allowed it to pass. And it was carrying enough explosives to destroy 3 of our heavy cruisers. The children's voices were recordings. The educational broadcasts were covering the sound of weapon systems charging. Crixtal's color shifted to deep red, the Zephyrian equivalent of anger. In just 4 months, these primitive humans had destroyed 17 outposts, captured 43 patrol vessels, and completely eliminated his supply lines. It should have been impossible. "Show me the tactical analysis," he ordered. The main display filled with data that made no sense. Human vessels were performing maneuvers that should have killed their crews from the acceleration forces. Ships that had been cargo haulers yesterday were configured as assault vessels today. Weapons appeared and disappeared between battles as if the humans were rebuilding their entire fleet every week. "They are using their civilian infrastructure as military assets," the tactical officer continued. "Every merchant ship, every passenger liner, every maintenance vessel is potentially a weapon. We cannot distinguish between civilian and military targets because they have made them the same thing." "Then destroy them all," Crixtal snarled. "Sir, they have taken that into account. Their merchant vessels travel in groups with actual civilian families aboard. If we fire on them, we kill innocents. If we do not fire, they attack us. Either way, we lose." On the display, footage showed a human cargo ship approaching a Zephyrian checkpoint. The ship was clearly marked as carrying medical supplies to a colony suffering from a plague outbreak. Zephyrian scanners confirmed the presence of medicine, doctors, and 6 civilians who needed treatment. But hidden among the medical equipment were weapons. The doctors were trained soldiers. The 6 civilians were special forces operators faking their symptoms. By the time the Zephyrians realized the deception, their checkpoint station was already under attack. "How do they coordinate these operations?" Crixtal asked. "Our intelligence shows they have no central command structure. Their fleet captains make independent decisions. Their supply lines are managed by civilian contractors. It should be chaos." "That is the problem, sir," another officer replied. "It is chaos, but controlled chaos. They make decisions too quickly for us to predict. When we adapt to one tactic, they have already moved to 5 new ones." The display showed intercepts of human communications. Instead of the formal military protocols the Zephyrians used, human ships talked to each other like friends having conversations. Orders were given as suggestions, battle plans were discussed like recipes being shared. "Admiral Kim here. That trick with the fake distress beacon worked great on Sector 7. Anyone want to try it on Sector 12? This is Captain Yang. We've got some spare torpedoes if anyone needs them. Also, my engineer figured out how to make our navigation lights look like engine failure." Captain CO calling. "My grandmother just sent me her recipe for homemade explosives. Want me to share it with everyone?" Crixtal listened to the chatter with growing confusion. These humans treated warfare like a community project. They shared ideas, resources, and tactics with an openness that violated every principle of military security. Yet somehow, it made them stronger instead of weaker. "Analysis of their tactical doctrine?" he asked. "Sir, they do not appear to have one. Each engagement follows different patterns. Sometimes they attack with overwhelming force, sometimes with single ships that disappear after striking. Sometimes they do not attack at all. They just help our enemies attack us." This was true. The humans had started broadcasting Zephyrian tactical frequencies to other alien species the Empire had been oppressing. Ancient enemies of the Zephyrians were suddenly equipped with inside information about patrol routes, supply schedules, and defensive weaknesses. "The Vorthan Rebellion in Sector 18 just captured 2 of our battle stations," reported the communications officer. "They are using human-provided intelligence and human-modified weapons. The Kellish pirates have tripled their attacks on our merchant vessels. They appear to be coordinating with human forces. The Nexari colonies have declared independence and are requesting human protection." Crystal watched his empire crumbling not from direct human attacks, but from humans teaching everyone else how to fight back. It was like watching an infection spread. Each victory inspired others to resist, and the humans provided the tools and knowledge to make that resistance successful. "Where is their main fleet?" Crystal demanded. "If we can destroy their primary military assets." "Sir, they do not have a main fleet. Every ship is both civilian and military. Every colony is both a city and a fortress. Every citizen is both a civilian and a soldier. We cannot target their military because their entire society is their military." A new alarm sounded. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander. Put it through." Admiral Lee Minho's face appeared on the screen, calm and confident. Behind him, Crystal could see a bridge that looked nothing like a proper military command center. Officers were drinking coffee. Someone was eating what appeared to be homemade sandwiches, and there was actually a child's drawing taped to one of the control panels. "Admiral Crystal," Lee said politely, "we need to talk. You dare contact me directly." "I'm offering you the same deal you offered us," Lee replied. "Surrender your fleet and accept human protection. You have 1 hour to decide." Crystal's form flared bright red. "You are still primitives. You cannot defeat the Zephyrian Empire." Lee's expression never changed. "Then why are you losing?" The transmission ended, leaving Crystal staring at displays showing human ships surrounding his position. Somehow, while he had been focused on their unconventional tactics, they had maneuvered his entire battle group into a trap. And the worst part was, he still had no idea how they had done it. Admiral Crystal's flagship Crystal Dominion drifted powerless in the void, its weapons systems disabled and engines dead. The massive crystalline vessel that had once been the pride of the Zephyrian fleet now hung like a broken jewel among the stars. Around it, human ships maintained perfect formation, not the sleek warships Crystal had expected to face, but converted civilian vessels that had somehow defeated his entire battle group. On the bridge of the Crystal Dominion, Crystal stood before the main display, his crystal form dim with defeat. His officers moved slowly at their stations, their usual efficiency replaced by confusion and shock. The impossible had happened. They had been outfought by creatures they considered barely above animals. The communication screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Lee Minho aboard his command ship. The human looked tired but determined, flanked by his senior staff. Commander Yoon Minji held a datapad containing surrender terms. Chief Engineer Choi Hana stood nearby, her uniform still bearing the grease stains of someone who had been personally modifying weapons systems. "Your terms are unacceptable," Crystal said, though his voice lacked the arrogance it had carried months earlier. "These are the exact same terms you offered humanity," Lee replied calmly. "Complete surrender of your military forces, acceptance of human protection and guidance, relocation of your people to designated areas where they can live safely under our supervision." "We are the Zephyrian Empire," Crystal protested, but even he could hear how hollow the words sounded. "We have ruled this sector for over 1,000 years. We are the most advanced civilization in known space." "Were," corrected Lieutenant Colonel Park Sun-woo, stepping into view. "You were the most advanced, but being advanced and being smart are two different things." On the tactical display behind Lee, status reports scrolled past showing the collapse of Zephyrian power throughout the sector. Other alien species inspired by humanity's success had declared independence from the Empire. Ancient enemies had risen up with human-provided weapons and intelligence. The 1,000-year reign was ending not with a single decisive battle, but with the slow crumbling of everything the Zephyrians had built. "You called us primitives," Lee continued, his voice never rising above a conversational tone. "You said, we threw metal pellets using chemical explosions. You were right, our weapons are simple, our ships are slow, our technology is basic compared to yours." He gestured to the images of human vessels surrounding the Zephyrian flagship. The converted merchant ship Lucky Strike still looked like it was held together with spare parts and hope. The cruise liner Jeju Dream had families visible through its viewing ports, children pressing their faces to the windows to watch the historic moment. "But you made one mistake," Lee said. You thought that having better technology meant you were better at fighting. You forgot that war is not about having the best weapons. It is about using what you have in ways your enemy cannot predict or counter. Crystal's form flickered with colors of confusion and anger. We had superior firepower, faster ships, better shields. And we had something you never learned to value, interrupted Commander Kim Tae-hyung, joining the conversation. We had people willing to turn their family vacation ship into a weapon to protect their children. We had engineers who could rebuild a cargo hauler into a battleship using nothing but spare parts and determination. On the screen, footage played, showing human families working together to modify their vessels. Children helped their parents install weapons systems. Elderly grandparents shared knowledge about homemade explosives. Teenagers rewired computer systems to turn civilian scanners into military targeting devices. You see warfare as something done by professional soldiers, using expensive equipment, Lee explained. We see it as something done by ordinary people defending their homes with whatever they can find. Chief Engineer Choi Hana stepped forward. Your ships were built in factories by specialists. Our ships were rebuilt in garages by mechanics who learned their trade fixing farm equipment. Your weapons were designed by military engineers. Our weapons were invented by people who normally made children's toys and kitchen appliances. That should have made you weaker, Krixtal said, still struggling to understand how his superior forces had been defeated. It made us unpredictable, Lee replied. Every time you figured out one of our tactics, we had already moved on to something else. While you were following military doctrine and waiting for orders from your superiors, we were asking our children for ideas and trying whatever sounded like it might work. The communication officer on Krixtal's bridge looked up from his station. Admiral, the other fleet commanders are requesting permission to surrender. They have seen what happened here and do not wish to continue fighting. Krixtal's form dimmed further. Throughout Zephyrian space, his fellow admirals were watching this conversation. They had seen their most powerful fleet defeated by converted civilian vessels. They had watched their military doctrine crumble against human creativity and determination. What do you really want from us? Krixtal asked finally. Peace, Lee said simply. Recognition that humans and our allies have the right to exist without your interference. Reparations for the families you harmed when you caged our people like animals. And a promise that you will remember this lesson. He leaned forward slightly. You are not gods, Admiral Krixtal. You are not destined to rule over others because you have better technology. You are just people like us. The difference is that we learned to work together while you learned to look down on everyone else. On screens throughout the galaxy, other alien species watched as the surrender documents were signed. The message was clear. The age of Zephyrian dominance was over. But more importantly, they had seen that it was possible to resist seemingly impossible odds. Send word to Earth Command, Lee said to his officers as the ceremony concluded. Tell them the galaxy just learned that threatening human families comes with a price no one wants to pay. As the Crystal Dominion was escorted to a detention facility, Krixtal stared out at the stars. The Zephyrian Empire had fallen not because humans were stronger, but because they had forgotten that strength came from protecting the people you cared about, not from having the biggest weapons. The primitives had taught the advanced species the most important lesson in the universe, that love for family and home could overcome any technology, defeat any empire, and humble any amount of arrogance. And across the galaxy, other species took note.